now we're going to lift the cover of these things, unscrew. We're going to lift the cover of the hydraulic unit. This is another complicated unit. This blanket, that's actually part of it. That's a thermal blanket. In the winter, you don't want this thing freezing. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of water running through here. So this is one more piece of protection to keep it from freezing in the winter. Okay, so this is this unit. You can see there's actually three zones and a return line. So this would be, I don't know which is, it's labeled zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. These are little solenoid valves. The control panel tells which one of these things to open. They're only going to be opening one at a time. We use zone 1 or zone 2 or zone 3. This is the return. It knows when this is to open up, because after the zone 1, after the pump pumps all the water through zone 1 into the ground, it cleans itself by returning back in here and going into the head of the hole, back to the front of that first treatment tank. Here is the water meter. So when we want to know how many gallons per minute is running through here, we turn it on by hand. We let the pump run for a while, because at first there's going to be air in the lines, and you want to get all the air out until the meter's going around. I guess this thing will be spinning. This little triangle will be spinning. These numbers will be changing. This is going through 4,175 gallons times 100. So it's over. Looks like over 4,400,000 gallons. At any rate. So by turning on the switch in the control panel, you can test each one of these zones to see how many gallons per minute. You just take a stopwatch, your iPhone, and time it. Right? So that's what this does. Now there's one other thing in here I want to point out. Well, there's two other things. These are filters, and sometimes these filters will clog, and you have to unscrew them and just clean them. You just wash them off, and because you don't want anything going through the little drip tubes that'll clog the holes in the drip tubes. There's another thing in here. I guess I'll point out two other things. There's this orange pad down there. That's a heating element. So in addition to the thermal blanket, when the temperature gets below freezing, that heating element will turn on. I guess it must have a thermostat on there or something. It'll warm this thing up, and then this keeps the heat from escaping. Of course, it's surrounded by the earth. That helps a little bit. And if water ever, this is dry as metal, and this is actually looking pretty good, but if water ever gets in here, there's a pipe in that corner where the water will go out the pipe. Actually, it goes into the stream over there. So this will never get saturated with water. You see all these wires, you don't want them getting wet and shorting out and stuff. So this is called the hydraulic unit, and that's about all I can tell you. I actually was involved in installing this thing. It was tight. It was very tight. I remember trying to get all these unions connected. It was a challenging job, but we got it done, and it works. It's been working absolutely great. We're going to put this back. Okay. So there's only one other place we're going to go now. We're going to actually walk across the fields to the 3 drip fields, and I want to talk a little bit about drip fields. The nice thing about drip irrigation systems, you don't have to pass a perk test. You don't do a perk test. I don't know if this would have passed a perk test or not, but you just have to dig some holes in the ground. You come out with a soil scientist who is a professional at interpreting soils, and you have to have at least, I believe it's 20 inches of suitable soil. It might be 10, I'll have to double check that one, but this had the suitable soil to allow to put this drip irrigation system in, even though it is a floodplain. Now, you can't put a drip system in a waterway, like when it floods, the water actually, from the Brandywine will run across certain parts of this. You can't put it in the floodway. But occasionally this whole thing will get wet from the overflow of the flood, and that's just that's the floodplain, and you can put them in a floodplain. So it was great, because if you shine over that fence, those split rail fences, that's where actually the fields are, They did that because when they have the huge events, cars park all over this place. We don't want cars parking over the drip system. I'll explain what that is when we get over there. But that's you have 4 lines going over there. 3 supply lines and 1 return line. 3 going out, 1 coming back. So we had to trench this whole thing and put those lines in. We did that right around Thanksgiving a couple years ago. All right, so let's go over to the field. Okay, so this is the actual drip fields themselves. And if you see that, I guess it'll show up in the film, it's like a berm over there. The soil raises up, okay? And then swing your camera over here. There's another berm right here. So the berms represent the 2 furthest ends of these drip fields. And between the 2 berms are 3 zones. And the reason for the berm, there's these tubes that run through here, approximately 2 feet apart, maybe a little less. I'd have to look at the permit, but they're only 6 to 8 inches deep. They're just below the sod, and later on I can show you a drip tube, what the tubing looks like. But it's about a 1/2 inch purple plastic tube with these little tiny emitter holes in them, and it just goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth into the soil. And the reason for the berm is it goes, when it makes its loop, it goes up and then back down and up and back down, so that when it's done pumping the water through the tubes, and as the water goes into the ground, the tubes that are kind of up in the berm, they drain first so that it doesn't freeze. You don't want any place where water might remain, and so it just keeps the water always in the tubes that are flat into the ground. This thing is always put on contour, which means when this was staked out, the tubes are perfectly level from one to, you can see it's a very flat spot, but it's done with a transit very, very carefully. So there's each zone has what's called an air relief valve, because think about it, the pump kicks on, there's going to be air in the pipes because there's air in the soil, and when the pipes drain, the air gets in the little emitter holes. And if you didn't have vents, a way for the air to escape, when the pump turned on, it wouldn't be able to, it would be called airlock, it wouldn't be able to push the water out here. So I'm going to try to find them. They're usually pretty easy to find. They're usually these little green things that stick up out of the ground. Probably in the berm someplace. Here's one. Okay, here's one here. We put them under these valve covers. So this right here is the air relief valve. There's just a little ball that would, when the thing turns on, it would rise, lets the air out. This is just insulation to keep it from freezing in the winter. So there's going to be 3 of these things. And this is settled so it doesn't fit on there perfectly. I don't know. Okay, here's another. Yeah, here they are. So there's zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. And it's the same thing. There's the air release valve right there. And so that's about it. Yeah, this one's better because it's lower. I like this one. This is the best one. We probably should raise this is just called a valve. It's called a valve, valve cover. We should raise them up. I think we'll do that. But this one fits on here real nicely. And you can turn it. Let's see here. Like this. Turn, and then the lid doesn't come up. There you go. So that's about it. Thanks for the tour.